Of John Arnold Jardins, player for the first Green Bay Packers team, put his gear on display at Austin Straubel International Airport for travelers to see. You can find things like his helmets, shoulder pads, cleats in the lobby when you walk in. The former Outagamie County Circuit Judge John Jardins spoke about the history of his grandfather and his relationship with Curly Lambeau, saying how Lambeau introduced him to football after World War I.
When the war was over, he came back to Green Bay. Lambeau left Notre Dame, came back to Green Bay, missed football, called up some of his old buddies, and handpicked the people that he thought could play the Packer team.
It was that simple then. The exhibit will be a permanent installation at Austin Straubel Airport. It's funny to believe, isn't it?